Heart first leadership isn't what you say, it's how you show up, how you regulate, how you communicate, and how you execute when it matters most. We are Heidi and Ryan Sawyer, and you are listening to the Heart First Leadership Podcast. Welcome back to the Integrated Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Heidi Sawyer, along with my husband, Ryan, here. And we are here to talk about this idea that we have heard and have thought ourselves in the past that self-improvement, self-help, self-development, even self-care is selfish. And the point that we're here to make today and to just discuss in a little more detail how this has shown up in our lives and, what we've seen, experienced, and heard from other people around this topic of really doing the work to improve yourself in service to others. And it being so much more about other people than it is about us as individuals.
Yes. So, I'm excited about this conversation. We were legitimately sitting on the porch a few minutes ago, no, hey, let's go hit record. What are we going to talk about? And you brought this up. I love it. It's something, I have unpacked a ton because there was a time in my life where legitimately someone tell me that you need to grow or you need to work on yourself or self-development, or here's a book to read that was, in the self-help world, right? That's another term that people use, self-help. I'd be like, self-help, self-development. Is that going to help me win football games? I need to figure out how to stop the read option. Anybody know how to run fit this new triple option that people are doing, and pistol this and whatever else. I'm talking back to obviously when I was a college football coach. It felt like it was a waste of time. It felt like it's like you weren't going to see the immediate results, which makes me kind of think back to this instant gratification that we tend to want to have. Well, okay, but I would rather see, it's easy to see in business. I run this ad, it leads to X amount of clients. That's a good decision for business, right? And it's not always so cut and dry when it comes to the idea of developing ourselves and showing up as a better version of ourselves. And I love what you said about this idea of it's selfish. And the only way to be selfless, and this is part of if you were to study yoga, right? The Yoga Sutras talk about being selfless versus selfish. And I probably should have pulled those up before we started this, but the only way to truly serve, the only way to truly be selfless is to first be selfish, right? Because otherwise you're pouring from an empty cup and you're operating from a place of lack and there not being enough. And yet you think that you're doing the right thing for your kids, for your family, for your team, for your community, whatever it is. I'm taking care of all these people, but you can only serve to a level of your own self development, growth, capacity. We'll talk more about capacity in a little bit. But anyway, I love this topic. So tell me where we're going.
Yeah, I want to share a quote that I found because I think this is really interesting and just illustrates what we're talking about really well. And that is, when we are selfish, our motivation is for our soul gain. And when we care for the self, our motivation is for our soul's gain, to nurture and cultivate the holistic health of the whole person, mind, body, and spirit. When we are selfish, we leave others behind. When we care for the self, we recognize that unless we are rested and strong, we can never bring others with us. And this was Bruce Thau. I think that's powerful because this is about bringing others along in the journey. It is about bringing your kids, your family, your community with you where you're going. And as you grow in your capacity, then what you're able to offer and who you're able to bring along with you grows as well. So it's about so much more than the self. It's about the greater good, truly.
Well, you think about, if you listen to the podcast that we just, launched last with Stephanie and talking about how we learn as human beings and the impact that we have on our environments, the unconscious projection of ourself, meaning what's happening internally, right? that's happening regardless, because we're human beings, through our pores, through our facial expressions, like all of that's being picked up by our environment. So if I am in any way, shape, or form not as confident as I'd like to be, that is what's projecting to my kids, let's say, right? Or to my spouse. And therefore, then they're going to struggle with their confidence. It's not rocket science at all. It's just how we are as human beings. Like legitimately the best service that we could ever offer our environment is to legitimately make our number one priority to work on ourselves, to expand our capacity, to have better confidence, to derive and figure out by doing this work, leading towards a greater sense of service, because our cup is full and because we're operating from a sense of wholeness and being.
I used to have a mentor in business in one of my first real careers. And one of the things that she always said, because I was in a role where I was overseeing a lot of different teams, she always said, speed of the leader, speed of the gang.
Yeah.
And that's something that comes to mind with this, is that if we're standing up in front of our family or our team or whomever, and like you said, we don't have the confidence, there are going to be those unconscious or not verbal cues that come up that let people know that. So what are some ways that people can start to explore expanding their capacity from a self-development perspective? I mean, I know that we have tons of tools that we could share, but what would you say would be like the starting point for someone?
Well, I think before we get started, like for me, it's always best to clean the windshield of what I don't want before I decide what I do want, right? I have to create the void and the space to do the work. So in this conversation, let's talk about potentially what's the opposite of development. What's the opposite of growing, right? And now, before we go into the opposite, growth, there's a law, right? There's these universal laws. And again, at some point, we'll go into each of the ones that I have pretty good knowledge about that would be able to have a great conversation around. But there's one law, it's called the law of growth. Like if you look at it from a universal perspective, the universe is constantly expanding. Like everything is constantly changing. There's nothing that ever stays the same, even though sometimes we feel like, oh, we got it all figured out. Like here I am. I got the house, I got the kids, I got the job, I got and everything's just right now. I don't want it to change. And but like when we stop growing, we are legitimately beginning to die inside.
Yeah.
And and this is a narrative I've noticed, and I have even in some ways played it in my own head for a very short period of time in transition in my life when I was kind of trying to figure out what the next thing was. And well, maybe it's not about me. Like it's always about you. And what I mean by that is it's not about me. I think it's very easy for us to be like, well, it's, I had my day in the sun.
Yeah.
Like
parent,
I've already done it, right? Like I've done it. I played high school football and I played college football and I coached and I kind of chased my dream and won a national championship and done all these things and so, okay. So we're saying that it's their turn. It's their turn, right? So I'm no longer going to allow myself to dream potentially.
Yeah.
Right.
You see that in motherhood too. It's like, okay, to be a good mother is to be completely selfless and give everything of yourself to your children and forget about your own identity and wants and desires at this point. Like your job now is totally them.
But it really, what completely freed me and unleashed me and like made me a complete freight train to grow businesses and to constantly be working on myself in a consistent, intentional way is because I realized the influence that we have on our environment, like the ripple effect, right? Of me continuously transforming my inner domain and what I think is possible, how I relate myself and to the world, right? So therefore I become more patient. I become more consistent. I become more confident. I mean, all these things that lead towards a new experience. And that's how to show your children like how to live, right? And I'm not saying I've mastered it, but what I'm saying is us first recognizing that there's this narrative that when you become a parent, that it's no longer about you. And I'm saying it's always about you. Because if you want more for your children, it's going to start with you. And that's what's being modeled to them. And that's how they're learning, like legitimately, like this last weekend, we worked all weekend, right? And it wasn't like, oh, we worked, but it was like, we were constantly bobbing and weaving. And we even took the family and did a pressure wash for this painting company, right? Which we didn't have to do, but we chose to do it. And we want our kids to learn how to work in that company because we want them to be grounded and understand how to work with their hands and always have that capability to, be able to, make a little bit of money by painting a house if they needed to in life later down the road, whatever. It's just a wonderful skill. But for us to, be modeling to them, like, yeah, let's go put on the rain gear and let's go pressure wash this house and let's go do something we don't want to do today. And just, would I rather, potentially had a little more relaxing weekend or a relaxing day? Sure, maybe. But it is always incredible to be able to teach your children, a new skill, a new tool, a new way of looking at things, a new perspective. And the only way that's going to happen is if you're doing your own.
So let's talk about this idea of creating the void or creating space for your own self-development, personal development, because the thing that I have heard a lot of times from friends and also clients I've worked with in the past is I don't have enough time. So can we just touch on some of the things that, have come up like within your own journey? And I'm happy to share as well ways that you've created that space, because I just want to give people some ideas on things that they could do to start create. Okay, Ryan, Heidi, we get it. Self-development's important. Where do I start? How do I create space for this in my life?
We are all leaders. If you're ready to stop waiting and start impacting your environment in a powerful way, we want to connect with you. Click the Book Now link in the show notes to book a call with a Heart First coach and discover what Heart First leadership can look like in your life and in your environment. Now back to the show.
Yeah. Well, it starts with taking a level of inventory, of where is my time and my energy first going. Where is my beam of awareness? Where's my attention? I think that the biggest thing is that we have to understand is that we are constantly distracting ourselves. We're constantly buffering. And whether you want to recognize it or be aware of it or not, a lot of us are addicted to certain things in our lives, and I'm not talking about drugs and alcohol, and that may be one of them that somebody's battling with, but it could be sports. It can be all kinds of things. It could be your phone. It could be social media. It can be, even excessive exercise, right?
Right.
We could be giving hours a day, hours a week towards something that is not serving us. Mm-hmm. And so like legitimately being able to look in the mirror and recognize that, a couple of podcasts ago, we talked about the victim versus creator, and to make that shift, we have to go from what are we avoiding? What are we denying? What are we resisting to acceptance, allowance, right? And to be able to make that shift towards where are we placing our attention? How do we come to a place of acceptance? How can we come to a place of allowance and step into a different mindset, right? Mm-hmm. But I think the first piece is to acknowledge, for me personally, when I still wasn't yet fully committed, I was watching 20 hours a week of football. Right. Now, this is after I left college coaching. Now I was excited about having the free time to be a fan because I was no longer working the insane hours of being a college football coach. Because if you could actually turn on a game as a college football coach, that was a holy cow, I get to watch a Thursday night game, or I get to watch a quarter or two of an NFL game, in between breaking down film on a Sunday or whatever. Right. Mm-hmm. So I was like, hey, I get to be a fan. And again, as I was doing that, I was still learning just enough to expose the fact that like, ooh, I have an addiction. I have an addiction to sports. I have an addiction to being buffered, distraction. Like the second that I turn on that TV and it's a game, like I now merge with that game and I don't have to be in the reality of my life, which it's a fine hobby. Like it's a fine, like little way to reward yourself. But when it goes over a couple hours a week, like what else are you doing for that insane amount of time that's considered a hobby? Because let's be honest, like sports, watching sports is a hobby.
Yeah.
It should be a hobby, right? Don't you think? Like watching somebody else live their dream, that should be a hobby. So I think to answer your question is to take a look at your life and to see like in what ways could you potentially be buffering, distracting yourself, avoiding, resisting, you know, and then be willing to potentially replace that time with something that is constructive, structured, guided, right?
Can I share one of mine?
Yeah, please.
This, I think a lot of people can relate to this because it feels productive. Cleaning, organizing, decorating the home, right? I still enjoy
and then redecorating,
right? Like I've had times in our relationship together where that whole aspect of things was way more time consuming than it needed to be because I was avoiding doing other things. And, you know, it's fine to have that as a hobby and something you enjoy doing. But what you really want to ask yourself at the end of the day is this helping me get closer to the person that I want to be and the person I want to be for my kids? And of course, it's important to have a clean home and to, you know, be organized, and having that structure is helpful. But a good check and balance for me is just to notice if it's, and still to this day, I still have times where I go a little heavier into the time that I'm spending on those things. And then I recognize, you know, typically when that's happening, it's because there's something else emotionally or what have you that I'm avoiding or just not wanting to address or deal with at that time. So that's a big one for me. I think a lot of people can probably relate to that as well. And those are sneaky because they feel productive, but it's not really making the impact that you want to make and not really moving you closer to the person that you want to be. It's very externally focused as opposed to looking inside at your experience of life and how you're showing up for your kids and your community, your team.
Yeah, I think a powerful exercise is a form of mental projection. And I did this actually before I understood mental projection, which motivated me to leave coaching, right? Because I was in a place where I was in a career that was a childhood dream and had given me everything to that point that I thought I wanted, but I was clearly in a place where I was not experiencing life the way that anybody would want to, because things were dense and they were dark. And this is what happens. And it might take days, it might take weeks, it might take months, it might take decades, but eventually, if you don't grow, you're going to be met with a trial that's going to force you to grow. You're going to be met with whether it be, you call it anxiety or depression or the loss of something, and maybe the loss of connection with a significant other, or, maybe the deep connection you really truly desire with your children, right? When you don't continuously grow, that's going to be the end result. And so I actually sat down and wrote out, okay, if I stay this course, because legitimately it was one of those conversations with you where I don't even want to try to count how many times we talked about it, but was, I can do this for one more year. I can do it for one more. I got one more year in me. I got one more year in me. I got one more year in me. And I was like, okay, so how many times are you going to say one more year? You're going to one more year yourself to the end of your life until your kids are grown up. And there isn't one more year. Right.
And then you miss things and
you missed it. So does this current pattern, habit, way of being, the way you spend your life, does it lead towards the experience of life that you truly desire? Right? Is it going to lead there? Right? And to know, like, a lot of times, so whether that's a big decision, like leaving coaching for me was the biggest decision I've, ever made in my own personal life. It didn't involve, obviously, getting married and having kids, but, and then, a layer deeper is to say, to recognize, and just to, again, consciously choose, like, it's okay to turn on the game on a Sunday afternoon, late in the fall and whatever, for a couple hours and check in with your favorite players or your favorite team or whatever, because it's a hobby. But to know the sacrifice, right? To know the sacrifice, be like continuously doing that over and over, to understand, like, what is easy now sometimes makes life hard later. And what is hard now, a lot of times makes life easier later. Like the chocolate chip cookie is really good right now, but enough chocolate chip cookies over time, like, makes life harder later, being weight, health issues, whatever else, right? Lack of exercise. It's easier to hit snooze now, but later, you're going to wish you would have worked out or exercised. Right. And so avoiding the instant gratification of legitimately, I believe we are wired to seek, because of screens and whatever else, like, this gives me this instant gratification. I turn on the game and, oh yeah. And like, this is incredible buffering that happens that we recognize. So to project yourself and to say, like, if I continue this, whether it be a habitual, whether you're eating, a habit of having a few drinks every night or whatever it is, or, maybe you have a couple of cigarettes or whatever it is, anything.
Right.
Like, is this going to lead me toward the experience of life that I truly desire, the connections I truly desire, the meaning of my life I truly desire, the self-image, the all of the components, the health, whatever, right? And the answer a lot of times is probably going to be no, it's not.
Yeah. So that's a great place to start. So you said taking inventory, because we can talk about creating space for transformation, creating space for self-development, for time to work on yourself. But in order to know what things to cut out or reduce, we need to take that inventory and take a hard look at how we're spending our time and what it is that we really want out of life at the end of the day, and decide if those things are getting us closer to that or further away from that. And if the answer is it's getting you further away from that, then there's the spot that we can create space for self-development.
Yeah. I think it's then, once you've kind of identified, the simple idea or concept of legitimately letting go, like learning to let go of everything from patterns, habits, behaviors, beliefs, concepts, stories, all kinds of things. Like, that's the next thing is I believe and especially in our model and understanding neuroscience and everything else, like, you identify, that's kind of the choice point, or I want something to be different. I'm going to take some inventory. All right. I can see how I'm buffering. I can see how I'm avoiding and distracting myself. Okay. Now it's time to let go. All right. So, like, letting go legitimately will allow for yourself to loosen the grip. And if, let's say, you're carrying an extra, wearing a weight vest, right? And the weight vest is not who you are, but it's making it harder to get up the mountain.
Right.
And, because you're taking, all of these habits and behaviors and patterns and things with you, but you want to get to the top of the mountain. Well, you're making it a hell of a lot harder on yourself by carrying an extra 40 pounds with the weight vest. So legitimately, like, letting go is the very simple component of, like, I'm going to make it easier to hike up the mountain. I'm going to make it easier by just this habit. And for me, I'm an extremist, that. So, like, once I realized that, like, oh my gosh, the 20 hours a week of football is not serving me. It's not going to create the experience of life I want. It's not going to teach my kids what I want to teach them. It's not going to create the environment in these four walls that I desire. So, like, we unplugged the TV completely. Like, we got rid of cable,
Let's talk about the TV for just a second, because on a previous podcast a long time ago, we talked about removing the TV from the main area of our home. And then what happened, you guys, is we moved into a new house. And when we moved into this new house, this was last winter, we moved in here and the previous homeowner said, hey, you know what? We'll leave this TV. We'll leave this. We'll leave that. And there happened to be this spot above our fireplace in our main living room where there was this great big TV. And it was Christmas time. And we're like, hey, you know what? This is kind of nice. We'll watch a few holiday movies, hang out. And it's easy to slip back into those old patterns, even though you've consciously made a decision to eliminate something. And so then what happened was, a short while after, we said, you know what, the TV's got to go from this.
It was a few months.
Yeah. And because we just realized, like, the experience that we wanted to have as a family didn't involve all of us sitting around focusing our attention on a screen. It was playing games together, writing, journaling, having dance parties, all these things that we like to do with our kids.
Honestly, my favorite thing that we do as a family is when we sit around and there's nothing happening.
Right. There's nothing. Everyone's just kind of hanging out.
Like, what are we going to do? Like, we're doing it.
Right. Lay down on the floor, stretch.
Favorite thing to do is nothing.
Yeah.
And then that's when incredible conversation happens. That's when somebody asks a question, it turns into something else, and we start laughing. Like, legitimately, no, we don't have to be playing a game. We don't have to be watching a screen. Like, just sit in the same room and just wait for the gold.
Yeah, create space for that magic. So anyway, I'm sharing that because you can intentionally make a shift like that, like what we're talking about, and then find yourself somehow in that situation again. And it's just another opportunity to take inventory and to consciously choose the experience that you want to have and create more space for quiet time, for reflection. For me, when I see a TV, it's like a black hole just calling me to pick up the remote and turn it on. Yes. And so that just taking away some of those temptations of things that are taking up time and space in your life so that you can focus on what's truly important.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if I completely finished this or I just want to reiterate it, is like, legitimately when you create that space, when you declutter your life, the mental space, the physical space, whether that's a habit, like watching an X amount of TV, or whatever it is, how you're eating, like, you're legitimately feeding energy back into yourself. Right. So we're calling it self-development. Right. And so you cannot develop yourself if your attention is being focused on a screen or outside of yourself. You are now merging with what's happening there. And your consciousness is in a place or in an environment that is not reality. Mm-hmm. Right. And because that's a game that's being played and it's not life. Mm-hmm. It's just a game. And it's life for those who are playing it. But it's not the purpose of any individual to watch that game. It's just a hobby. Right. So, but you cannot develop yourself unless you begin to cut the ties of all the different things that are stealing your energy, from social media to news to other people to negative people to the things that don't matter in your life, the things you're not in control of, to the ways that you're distracting yourself and buffering yourself. Like, then you cut those ties, and legitimately it's like turning, this energy faucet back around on yourself and feeding it back into yourself so you can develop it. Like, that is the core fundamental component of self-development, is feeding the self energy, you energy, right? Then turns into growth that impacts the people who you care about most, your loved ones, your families, and impacts them in ways that you can never imagine, and a ripple effect throughout their lives and into their lives in ways.
Sometimes that means taking the focus. So we talk about all these external focuses, like I talked about cleaning, redecorating, organizing. You talked about watching sports, TV, those types of things. Sometimes our focus can externally be on someone else's business, right? Like being involved in other people's problems or the problems of the world, these types of things where we're focused on something outside of us that isn't really actually affecting the things that are like within the four walls of our home. So sometimes it's just taking our attention in the form of our thoughts and energy around something and taking that more inward and saying, okay, what is it that I am in control of here? Because when I'm focusing all my energy outside on these other things, it's really not helping the people who are looking to me for guidance and depending on me to, be a light for them in my home.
Well, I mean, you look at news and those type of things. It's like legitimately how many of the things that we are exposed to, especially as you're watching a game live, like goodness gracious, the commercials, people are getting paid millions of dollars to influence your mind. So you buy things. Like you're legitimately allowing yourself. This is one of my main motivators for not watching TV is that I know if I subject myself to that screen, like in that period of time, that window, that 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is, I am being programmed by somebody else other than me. Mm-hmm. And then not to mention the information that I'm taking in is nothing that I'm going to do anything about. Like, Stephanie's podcast that we recently did, she says, what are you going to do about it? Like there has to be some movement. You have to move the kinetic energy that is being built up with the information that you're taking in, whether it be sport, whether it be commercials, whether it be news, media, whatever it is coming into you. If you don't do something with it, it turns into disturbance within you. It turns into a dissonance within you. It turns into learned helplessness. It turns into frustration, right? Mm-hmm. And we wonder why we're taking in too much stuff that we wouldn't even ever be exposed to otherwise as a human being, or has nothing to do with us, like legitimately nothing to do with us. Yeah. And I want to also talk about like, and I just heard this in my head just now as I was saying that, a lot of people connect over those things. And so I'm not saying, again, I know a lot of couples, they love to go to a sports game or, they're both Mariners fans or whatever it is. Right. And I get that. I understand that. And it's important to have different types of glue within your relationship. Right. Mm-hmm. And, things that, when we first got together, let's say like what our number one glue as we first got together is that we like to have a good time. We were really good at having a good time. So that's kind of like, look, the two of us having a good time, mm-hmm. right? You know what I mean? Let's party. And, maybe it's nature that glue people together. Maybe it's boating, maybe it's golf, maybe it's these other things. But I'm going to tell you very, very simply, the strongest glue that there is growth. Yeah. Is a growth mindset in an environment where each of you are constantly, navigating, evolving, growing, transcending, learning how to be, to fill up your cup so you can serve into, pour into others. Like this idea of growth, which turns into, which I'm, if both parties, whatever the mission may be, eventually a unified mission will come out of doing the work, right? Which is one of our topics that we will eventually get to is like, what is your mission? The strongest glue is not a sports team wearing the same colored, shirt on a Sunday afternoon. It's golf, or it's not a hobby. And those things are all good. I'm not downplaying any of them. Mm-hmm.
And you can have multiple.
You can have multiple things.
You should have lots of things that tie you together that are common interests for sure.
But the fundamental foundation of a relationship, of a marriage, of relationship with your children, of a relationship within the four walls of your house, that's going to be the absolute strongest glue, mm-hmm. is growth.
Yeah, and the reason for that, one of the reasons that I see for that is that your relationships with your kids, with your partner, are only going to be as strong as the relationship that you have with yourself. So if you are treating yourself, mic drop, right? Yeah. If you're treating yourself with respect, if you're treating yourself like you're worth doing the work for, that you're worth improving, that you're more important than whatever throw pillows you're putting on the couch or whatever game happens to be on, then of course that's going to translate into your relationships. You putting the focus on yourself and treating yourself like a priority is going to transfer into the relationships that you're in.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much we want to dive into, like, okay, how do you grow? But, because we could talk more, do other topics about, like, doing the work and different ways to get started. I mean, I just think this podcast has evolved into, as the conversation has unfolded, is just an understanding self-development and what is possible on the other side of it. Right. Because it's going to, first of all, before we go to that, the kind of the outcome component, is going back to your original idea, like that it's selfish, right? We will spend an incredible amount of money, time, and energy and resources on our children playing a sport, let's say, right? We'll drive. We did it, right?
Sports.
Our son played rugby. Travel. We in 7 weekends we traveled to Pendleton, Yakima, Tri-Cities, Ellensburg. I mean, but over and over and over weekends, hotels, eating out. I mean, I don't even want to tally up how much time and energy and money we spent. And but yet when we are talking to somebody about having, making an investment into themselves to better themselves so they can better their family, the idea of a couple $1,000s is like, oh, and I don't have that kind of time and I don't have that kind of money. I'm like, well, yeah, I bet you do. And it's just legitimately making you the priority, because it's going to take an investment. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take some money, but
there's always an exchange.
There's always an exchange of energy. Yeah. And on the other side of those, investment is a return. It's cause and effect.
Yeah. Not having the TV in the living room, there's a cost to that, right? It's now you got to go down into the basement and get everything ready to watch a movie, whatever. But the reward to that is all this other stuff that you would never see until you do it.
The price of the new life is the old one.
Right.
Right. And it's not that when you begin to let go to feed energy back into yourself, it's not like you're missing out. You're not missing out on anything. Like legitimately, you're opening up and to be able to explore all kinds of possibilities that you never even knew existed. Right. Because I still notice that once in a while when I know it's game time, for a certain, game that's being played or whatever. I watch maybe 2 or 3 games a year now. And really the only time I watch is if it's somebody who I am good friends who are coaching or, I'm watching a former player of mine, like Samson or Cooper or whoever playing for the Rams or the Niners or, Kendrick playing for New England or Taiwan or whoever. Like I love to just check in and watch them play, but I don't watch the whole game. I watch a series or 2, 3, maybe, and to know like every little piece of that, like there is a cause and an effect and there's a sacrifice that you're making to spend your time, energy, and resources on such thing. And when we begin to let go, we are then creating the energy and a different possibility for our life, right? We can't see it initially.
Yeah. I think that's important.
You're not going to experience it in the next moment. Like you're not going to turn the TV off like Ryan's full of it, right? You know what I mean?
No, you're going to actually take the TV out of the room and then you're going to feel a sense of loss.
Yeah, there's going to be loss. Like you're going to feel like you're missing out.
Right.
There's going to be that, right? Because it's like ingrained in you. That's what you do in the fall on Sunday afternoons. You watch a game, right? So anyway, the outcome of it is very simple, that when you do focus on feeding energy back into yourself and developing yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, intuitively, right? Because a lot of times I think self-development gets lost in the physical component, and that's an important beginner stage. Like, yeah, you want to be able to move healthy and be strong, sure. But the real goal is when you begin to learn how to govern your mind, when you learn how to be able to transmute an emotion, when you learn how to be able to feel fear and expand in the face of it. Like when you legitimately are you're feeling, what one would call nerves, and you can transmute it into excitement, and you can find where the gift is and how to grow. And like you master this ability to push into resistance, to push into the unknown, to create different experiences, and things come of it that you never would have otherwise experienced. Like, you stay more open and engaged with your relationships. You become more confident. You're able to stay calm in more rugged situations.
Yeah.
And so therefore you have the experience of life that you truly desire, because there's not a person on the face of this planet who doesn't want more connection. It's a basic human need. I'm sorry. You don't get to act like it doesn't matter to you. There's not a person who doesn't want a stronger sense of self and confidence and autonomy and choice. There's not a person on the world who just, you maybe you justify to yourself. I know, I just want to go to work and come home and live paycheck to paycheck. Like, no. Nobody wants that. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to have extra resources, and they all want to have a sense of meaning and contribution. But you're not going to ever derive that sense of meaning and contribution and passion and purpose in your life unless you feed back energy back into yourself. And if your attention is constantly outside and merging with things that aren't changing anything, then you're not going to develop the self. And those things will not come to the surface, and you will not have more confidence, and you will not have deeper connections, and you will not have more meaning and contribution in your life. And that's just the choice that you're making.
And let's also just point out, not everybody in your life is going to understand that you're doing self-development or why you're doing self-development, or that it's something that maybe they should take a look at too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's going to be a part of the journey, and being able to be strong enough in your why and in the result that you want, in the experience of life that you want to have, that you can say, it's okay. Not everybody's going to get me or why I'm doing this, but I know why I'm doing it, and who that's going to affect within the four walls of my home. Because I can tell you, we did another podcast on when your partner isn't into self-development or personal development. And I can tell you from being the resistant party to self-development in the past within our relationship, that Ryan doing the work, that you doing this work, Ryan, impacted me, even though I wasn't actively engaging in it at that time. So it's really none of our business what other people are, when they're ready, what they're deciding to do, or what they think about us doing it. You do it for you, and you know that it's not a selfish thing. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do, because it's bringing other people along with you, whether they recognize and acknowledge it or not.
Yeah. Your development, your growth is in service to others. The end.
Yeah. So
Takeaways.
Oh man, we covered a lot. One couple things that I just want to highlight and make sure that those of you listening here is that if you are embarking upon a journey of self-development, if you're looking at your life experience and you're thinking, maybe there could be more for me, maybe I want more for my kids, and the best way I can think of to show them is to do it myself.
Yeah.
Just know that there is going to be a sense of loss at some point when you decide to replace whatever you're looking at externally and focusing your energy and attention on with going inside and focusing your energy and attention on yourself, and that other people are maybe not going to understand what you're doing, but just to stay rooted in the reason why you're doing it to begin with, and to really get yourself excited about that potential ripple out effect of the work that you're doing within yourself and what that can do for your family and your team and your community, and even beyond the people that you know and have met and have touched. Because working on yourself has a ripple out effect that is immeasurable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and I would say that everybody, I don't care who it is. Everybody wants something to be different. Everybody, and if you don't change it, you're choosing it. I guess the definition of insanity is to continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result.
Mm-hmm.
You have to change something. It doesn't have to be big. My largest takeaway and is even just having this conversation. Obviously, I wrote a few notes before we started just to kind of bullet point a few ideas out, but the glue that's going to strengthen your marriage, strengthen your relationship with your children, strengthen your family bond, and then strengthen the clarity of a purpose that's larger than yourself is going to be growth.
Mm-hmm.
And so an authentic action for you to take is to just legitimately begin by making the smallest incremental shift you can possibly imagine. Like, give yourself a win and just do one thing, because it's not one day deciding, all right, I'm going to really start working on myself. I'm going to go from the narrative that I'm not willing, I don't need to grow, or I don't want anything to be different, to leaning in and deciding I'm going to take full responsibility. I'm going to shift some things. You don't just jump into the deep in the pool without the tools, without the support, without the mentorship, without the awareness on how to do the work and what to expect. I would have really wished somebody would have told me how much resistance pops up when you do this type of work, because I could have expected it. It wouldn't have derailed me so much. Right. And I also wish that and there's no way of doing this, knowing on the other end how beautiful the experience of life can become when you get yourself out of the way, when you learn to truly let go and find it, but start making change a habit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So
yeah,
just beginning to change things in your life, get used to changing things in your life, because I'm telling you, here's something I've noticed about resistance. Some people are really good at leaning into resistance because they acknowledge that the big R is there, right? Like it's constantly this inner experience that if I don't feel it, I'm kind of like, oh, wait a minute, where to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most people are just resisting resistance.
Yeah.
So,
wrap your mind around that.
Yeah. And that's most people. You're just resisting the resistance that is inevitably there because we're creatures of growth. And that's part of the evolutionary pulse.
Yeah. I've done that. Resist the resistance.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't want to feel that.
There's some other people who, I'm not going to say who they are in case they're listening, but that just pop up in my mind as something like, you're just resisting to resist.
Right.
Because you're conditioned to resist, and that's it. And so start conditioning your life into the idea that you're going to constantly be changing things, and almost to the point where it becomes fun. Eventually you'll cross a threshold because in, our conversations, Mike, don't get too comfortable here wherever we are, because I'm going to change something else.
I wrote down routine can be the enemy of growth, because what we want to do is we want to make change the new habit. Make change the new habit.
Make change the new habit, right? So we talk about morning routines, getting up, starting your day with intention. But even that morning routine is constantly changing itself. I'm not saying, right? So, and the fact that it's changing is because you're changing.
Yeah.
And you're changing no matter what. It's just, is the momentum going in the direction that you desire, and it's going to create the outcomes and the experience of life that you want.
Yeah. There's no staying in the middle. You are rolling to one direction or the other, always.
Always.
Right. Yeah.
That's another universal principle. So yeah, just make change the habit. Find something to change and change it. And it can be really painless at first, but hey, you looked at you, you changed it. You decluttered a room. It could be the physical space. The physical is always a great place to start. And then you cut something out of your diet. I don't know.
And when
doesn't matter what it is, so small.
The new habit, you avoid the pitfall that a lot of us run into, right? And I've been in both of these places at different times in my journey. And one was that I made the physical transformation the whole meal deal, right? And I said, I'm going all in to just transform my body, be the healthiest, all of this. And what ended up happening is eventually I got to a point where I wasn't doing enough introspection. I wasn't looking at really what was going on from kind of a higher perspective. And I lost myself in it, and I didn't continue to progress because that became the routine habit that was preventing the change that I needed to have next. And same thing with the decluttering and the organizing and the cleaning and the, clearing of the space. Beware, because eventually, if you're not focused on continually changing and growing, you can get stuck in these patterns that seem like you're doing the work.
It's like checking the box.
You're not actually progressing in the way. It's becoming a new buffering mechanism as opposed to the new frontier to explore where your growth edge is. So always be exploring where that edge is, and know that it's the nature of the mind to get into routine, to kind of continue to seek that comfort and repetition to conserve energy. So you've got to stay on top of it and be at the forefront of that, and notice when something that was serving you maybe isn't the best thing for you in this season.
Right. You turn yourself into a box checker.
Yeah.
I did it. I got up. I did this. I went to church. I did that.
Right.
Box checker. They're box checkers. And it's easy. I've done it with my own mindfulness practice. Like, I meditated. Yeah. But did you really sit down with the intention to just practice to let go, just for no sort of like trying to achieve something, trying to get something in return. Right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love it.
At that.
Actionable step, make change the new habit. Just change something.
I love that.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you, Heidi, for your time and your insights. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening. Remember, leaders go first. Alignment matters. And the environment that you create is the legacy you'll leave. We'll see you on the next episode.